So is Rainbow Six Siege worth it in 2020? Well, to me, Siege has always been worth it. I remember when the game first came out, it was actually quite poorly received because it didn't have a single player campaign, and I remember buying it only a month after it came out at an extremely cheap price, and after playing it, I thought that it was one of the most unique shooters that I've ever played. You see, to me, Siege takes some of the best elements from certain games and combines them together to make a really unique shooter game where no two matches are ever really the same. The destruction elements of it reminded me of one of my favorite shooters at the time, which was Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3, and it took the gameplay of a more competitive game like Counter-Strike and improved on the mechanics and the actual smoothness of the gameplay. And on top of that, they introduced some unique features to the game itself, which I haven't really seen in a lot of PvP shooters before then. Most notably would be the rappelling system, because in a lot of shooters, you basically have two real options to go into a map. The first one is to just go in from the ground floor, and the second one is to get a helicopter or something and come in from the rooftop. You never really had many games that allowed you to specifically pick which story and what window you want to go into. At least not a lot of other PvP games done this. I think Vegas 2 actually did it, but other than that, I don't remember any other games doing it. But on top of all that, one of the things that made Siege be a game that has stood the test of time and has been probably the most consistently fun game over the last 5 years that I've been playing was the fact that unlike other shooter games that once you learn the map, you basically understand the movement patterns and the way people are gonna act. In this game, that was not so much the case. Yes, you could learn the map, but at any given point, somebody could blow a hole in a wall and suddenly there's a whole new entrance. Someone could come in from the ceiling, someone could come in from the window, and every different match, depending on what players choose to do, is going to be entirely different in the way the game plays out. And it only adds to that unpredictability when you add in the fact that you can choose different operators with different abilities, with each attacker and defender kind of trying to counter each other's out. I think it really becomes a game of tactical chess, so to speak, because every different match is entirely different. I have never played two matches of Rainbow Six that have been exactly the same. And I've been playing, like I said, for the last 5 years pretty consistently. And I've yet to actually have the same map go exactly the same way multiple times. Sure, there's things that players tend to do more often than not, but it's always different. And because they're probably always different characters, you can never really predict what's going to happen, which is one of the reasons that this game can carry on 5 years on and still keep its player base and still keep itself fresh. And in this game, it really rewards you to try and experiment with different tactics and plans, try and cooperate with your friends to combine different operators' abilities like Thatcher and Thermite to try and get through reinforcements, or use Glass and Ash to create openings for him to snipe through. And really, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it allows for you to actually have fun with experimenting with different strategies. Sometimes it's just pure skill that pays off in terms of how fast your reaction speeds are and how good your aim is, but a lot of other times I find that trying to be more creative with the way you approach these maps and these missions, you can actually beat much higher skilled players by creating these flanking routes or coming in from a way that they don't even expect you to do. And I think that's the real fun of the game. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It allows for a ton of unique moments, a lot of fun moments that only really can happen in Siege. In fact, at one point I had more than 500 gigs of just saved 5-minute clips of funny stuff that had happened through my time playing with friends on Siege, which really speaks volume about the fact that there is a lot of crazy things that can happen in this game, and none of them are ridiculous at the same time. I feel like even now that they're kind of delving into the little bit more unrealistic side of things, it's still within the realm where you're not thinking, well, this is stupid or ridiculous. It still kind of makes sense, I guess, and really more importantly than that, it is still consistently fun. It pays off to be a tactical team player and strategize really well, but it also pays off just as much trying to be creative and have fun with the game, if not more. One of the things in Siege that make it still so much fun for me to keep going back to, and all my friends, is the fact that once you become kind of decent at the game and you start to understand the maps a little bit, you can really try experimenting and trying to win in creative and fun ways, which make it so much better than just shooting people better than the other guy. And that's really what it comes down to, I think. It's about how you do what you do that matters. It's about the way you approach the map and the way you try to read your opponent's every move. Like I say, it's a tactical game of chess. That's the best way I can really describe it. I also think that Ubisoft has done an incredible job of consistently updating this game and keeping the model of these DLCs and updates in a way where I own this game on PC, Xbox, and PS4. I own almost every operator on pretty much every platform, and I have never actually paid for any of them with real money other than Buck. And that was because I thought he was really cool and that was the first DLC that came out. But you can really play this game and unlock all the operators and everything in the game by just playing the game. It's not unreasonable to get 25,000 credits. And in fact, nowadays, the older operators are actually cheaper. So they're about 10,000, 15,000, which is much more achievable. That's like 5 wins in a game of rank. And if you're also doing your optional objectives, you're gonna get there really pretty quickly. And I would heavily argue that you'd have to thank Rainbow Six for introducing this kind of model and inspiring games like Modern Modern Warfare, which is now also doing the same thing, releasing the maps and everything for free. Because I think if this game failed and it didn't deliver in such an overwhelming fashion, nobody else would really want to do it. I think they took a big risk, and I do think in that regard that the criticisms that the game received when it first came out were probably the best thing that happened to it. If it wasn't for that criticism, I don't think that Ubisoft would go the extra mile. But the fact that critics initially didn't like the game made them have to work extra hard to bring in new players and keep them there as well, which in effect has created one of the best shooter games of the last decade, if not one of the best shooter games that I've ever played. And yes, it is getting a little bit dated in terms of the smoothness of the gameplay and the graphics, but I genuinely think that in 2020, hell, even in 2022, 2025, this is still going to be a game that will be worth playing simply because of the fact that no two matches are the same. And I cannot stress that enough. That is the core reason why Rainbow Six Siege, above all other shooters, is worth going back to year after year after year. And if that's what you're after, if you don't like the monotonous routine of other shooter games, then I think you're really gonna love Rainbow Six Siege 2. And if you like what I do on this channel, please go ahead and make sure to subscribe. Drop down your comments below and tell me what you think about Siege. If you've been playing it a long time, if you're a new player, if you've never played it before, I'm very active in my comment section down there, and I'll make sure to reply to as many people as I can. And to reiterate the conclusion of this video, is Rainbow Six Siege worth it in 2020? Well, to me, not only is this game worth it in 2020, but I think it's going to be worth it for a long time to come.